Welcome to another episode of Harbor Rock Wealth Management's podcast series, Life, Health, and Wealth, where we discuss financially driven topics and how they relate to our financial lifestyles. He's Ruben Smith. I'm Jimmy Luster. And today we have the man, the myth, the mayor of San Clemente, Chris Duncan, joining us.
What's up, guys? Yeah, good
Happy
to be here.
have you, man.
Yeah.
You're literally probably the busiest guy in this town, and somehow you found your way to join us for about an hour or so this morning. So we really appreciate it.
Very glad to be here. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
rock.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Let's do
Cool. Before we dive in, I always give our viewers a stat of the day. Sometimes it's sports, sometimes it's world history, sometimes it's a fun fact about a watermelon. But today, just a quick one because we got a lot to cover.
Yeah.
So in 1930, and you're a sports fan, you'll appreciate this.
Heck yeah.
In 1930, the Yankees signed Babe Ruth to a 2-year, $160,000 contract.
That's big money, man.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, 1930, 160 grand. I didn't do the equivalent. I've done the equivalent sometimes before, but in the wake of the Dodgers $1 billion
What did Ohtani
offseason,
get? Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Ohtani, what, 760 million?
Yes. Unreal. Hard to even compare, right?
Yeah.
It's a different world. I have a funny Babe Ruth story. If you
Yeah,
want me to
please.
tell that
Yeah.
at some point.
I did.
Well, I went to Boston College, which I know we're going to get into,
Yeah.
but and I used to hang out with some baseball players and stuff and go to some of their games. And there was an old crusty guy who was like their equipment manager. And he'd been the BC Eagles baseball equipment manager forever. And he pulls me aside as I'm sort of watching one of the games, and starts telling me his life story. He did the same thing, back in the day for the Red Sox, right? Like
Okay.
as a kid, and he was trained and stuff. And he told the story that Babe Ruth used to in the middle of the game would come down and swig down, like he called it a schooner of beer,
Yeah.
during
yeah.
the baseball game.
That's
and
32
like 4
ounces.
or 5 hot dogs during the course of the game, like while the game was like every between innings, Babe Ruth just scarping it down, and yet the guy went out there and just killed it
Just
on the
mashed
baseball
it.
field, right? Like
Wow.
so, yeah, interesting.
Amazing, different times. So
Yes.
one of my high school coaches was Tip Lefevre, twin brother to Jimmy Lefevre, who
yeah.
played in big leagues. And Tip, I mean, we had a big league staff as my high school coach. My high school coaches, Jeff Robinson, who pitched for the Dodgers, the Giants. He was our pitching coach. Tip was our manager. And Tip used to tell us, he's like, you guys have no clue. He'd catch us with a chew every once in a while. We weren't supposed to be doing it, but that's what what stupid kids do. And coach was like, we used to smoke in the dugouts, and
I believe it.
if it was a quick
Nobody
inning,
thought anything
I,
of it.
I was hitting fifth that inning. I'd light up a cigarette, and I knew I was going to have a couple puffs at least before I had to go out in the on deck circle. But if it was a quick inning, and there was a double play and a strikeout or something, I just put my cigarette out, put it in my cubby where my helmet was and everything, and
Yeah.
go back out on the field.
Yeah, the good old days.
I
right?
Just-
remember
I mean,
coaches and,
just
and
different
stuff
times.
smoking.
Jimmy Leland,
Yeah,
Right.
Leland.
he had a
Exactly.
pile next to him in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lefevre, I think, was the A's pitching coach actually for
Okay.
a while.
Yeah.
We'll get into that too.
Yeah, cool.
At some point.
Well, let's dive in. So, your professional background. So, I read a little bit about it. You served as senior attorney and prosecutor for U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
Yeah.
You said and we talked a little bit before the show, for the greater part of your professional career, 16 years
Yeah.
or so, and you have now transitioned into local government, and we're very lucky to have you in this city.
Appreciate that.
Maybe if you want to start with your personal background and how you came to be into your professional life,
Yeah.
and then we'll transition into how you became to be in local government.
Yeah.
If you will, you can share with us your collegiate journey. I know there's some interesting fun facts there as well. But yeah, I'm sure our viewers would love to hear about it.
Interesting to the larger public. Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll try to keep it clean here.
Okay,
But,
sure.
well, yeah. I mean, I'll try to rush through. There's a lot there, but I grew up in a little Navy town called Alameda. It's an
Yeah.
island
Yep.
actually up in the San Francisco Bay Area. My family settled there after World War II, and beautiful place to grow up. Small town, much like San Clemente, actually. Right, an old classic downtown. Ended up going back east for college, right? Went to public schools around there, played basketball in high school on a state championship team
Nice.
at Bishop O'Dowd High School. I went back east. My mom was from Massachusetts originally, so I wanted to try it out I went to Boston College. I visited in the summer, and it was beautiful, and it looked just like California. And I
Yeah.
said, "This is awesome." And that first winter hit, and I was like, "What did I sign myself up?"
Looked
for?
like
out of
Goodwill
water.
Hunting, and then you were like, oh no.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Then it was like Arctic tundra, right?
Yeah.
Like it was
Right.
frozen every morning. But had a great experience there. You know, learned a lot being in the East Coast, far away from home, kind of figuring out how to live on my own. But I can tell you that it definitely was looking at law schools when I decided to go to law school in warm weather environments, right? So it was like
Yeah.
Pepperdine, University of San Diego, and University of Hawaii.
Okay.
And it was the depths of winter in Boston, state of emergency. You couldn't even leave your apartment. Snow everywhere, piled up on the door. And I tell you what, the post office folks, they're still out delivering. That's not,
Yep.
they really do snow, sleet, and everything. So I get the acceptance letter from Hawaii. It's got a palm tree on it, sand inside, and
Aloha.
it's written in Hawaiian. And it says, "Welcome." Yeah, you're in. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
See you suckers later.
Yeah.
And so ended up in Hawaii for law school, you know, other side of the world. Incredible experience there. Very small law school. So every year we had a U.S. Supreme Court justice come and teach us. So we had Antonin Scalia, Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
wow.
and Anthony
Wow.
Kennedy in the 3 years I was there.
Oh man.
And yeah, so you know, tough to concentrate. I'd say, you know, the studying didn't go well when I went down to Waikiki. Didn't learn much, but got a lot of sand in the pages of the books. So got through there and ended up back in the Bay Area for the .com bust back home.
Oh, man.
Right? Remember
Okay.
that?
Yep.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
All my friends who didn't go to law school were living these highfalutin jobs
Sure,
in the city, playing ping pong all day in these tech jobs. And meanwhile, I'm scrambling trying to find a job because law firms aren't hiring anybody. So that was, you know, that was a tough way to start my legal career. My dad says, "Hey, you know, why don't you go live back with your uncle JD?" Uncle JD was my dad's uncle, but my great uncle. He was a U.S. senator from the state of Montana, where my family's originally from. And so I went back and lived with JD. He says, you should go get a graduate law degree at Georgetown. I know a few professors over there, right? And I was like, oh, Georgetown, I can boost up the
school.
resume.
Yep.
Nothing against the University of Hawaii, but it didn't look great on the resume. You
Sure,
know, I'm talking
sure.
to law firms. They're like,
It's not what they're known for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Surf law, like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a market for that.
And you got a law degree while you were there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, so I'm back. I'm in D.C. I'm getting that graduate law degree at Georgetown, and really the defining moment of my life happened, and that was 9/11. And so I was working at a small law firm, and going to law school, but the office building was very close to where the Pentagon was. So I heard the crash when the plane
wow.
hit.
Oh my gosh.
And then I had some friends that were first responders, and I could see the smoke. I heard their stories, and you know, a light bulb went off for me. I realized that that I did have a desire to serve the public, right? To do something bigger than just be a lawyer in a law firm or something, and nothing against that, but that changed what I started thinking about for my future, and I was called by the sentiment out there. If you remember when George Bush went out there and he stood on top of that rubble with that retired firefighter and he threw that perfect strike at Yankee Stadium, everybody was cheering.
Oh man, yeah.
It
Gives me
didn't
chills
matter.
thinking about it. Yeah.
It wasn't Republican, Democrat, young, old, woman, man, whatever religion, poor, rich. Everybody was ready to charge that hill for the United States of America.
Right.
I was filled with that spirit, and I think we can get back to that. By the way, we can talk
love
about
that.
that. But it was with that spirit that I said I want to get out there and protect our country. I want to get out there and work in the area they needed people, which is down on the border, right? As an attorney, but working with law enforcement officers, and so they were willing to take me. Now, just again going back to the Hawaii thing, and maybe I shouldn't have spent so much time taking those flight lessons.
Well, yeah, I
Jeremy.
heard you were trying to become a pilot or something. What were you?
I've
What were you
always-
doing?
I've always had a fascination with flying. I've always enjoyed airline travel, right? And so, I had a roommate that I was living with. I'd worked as a lifeguard in the summer before I started law school over there. Whole nother story on a day cruise boat off of Waikiki. Very fun experience. But one of the guys I met, and ended up in a big house with, was a flight instructor, Robert Robertson.
Perfect.
We called him Bob. And
Bob Square.
yeah, so he says, hey man, if you're interested in flying, I can bring you on some lessons. I'll take a bottle of Southern Comfort as payment for me.
Yeah.
All you got to pay for is the fuel.
Is the gas, yeah.
So, one year, and I hope the statutes run out this, but one year, they accidentally gave me the loan money for the out-of-state tuition, but they only charged me the in-state tuition.
All right.
So I had a few extra $1,000 out there, and
Sounds
I said,
like a
I
win.
think I found my fuel money. And so I got about 45 hours up there, and I still have my logbook and everything. And I want to get my private pilot's license eventually, but I did get to solo landing, and so that was incredible fun experience. But probably not what you're supposed. Kids out there, do not use your student loan money for flight lessons. Although I guess there's a tie there.
Unless you're going to transition into being a pilot.
Yeah,
like you're
exactly.
chasing a
Right,
career
right.
aspiration.
If you're doing that, then it's okay. But if you're trying to be a lawyer, then maybe you should spend the money on your law class.
And you were flying around over the islands,
Oh,
man.
it's beautiful. We would fly over. Quick story on that. We would fly to other islands with almost nothing: flip flops, backpack, shirt, board shorts, and we would just rent a car from whatever airport in Kauai, Big Island, whatever. We would just drive to a beach, like 4 or 5 of us, and just sleep on the beach for 2 days and surf and swim and eat pineapples and stuff. I mean, fish. So
Yeah, it's
that
like
was
Castaway.
my life. Not your not your normal law school.
So that's
life.
law school.
That's law
So
school.
that's
for me.
law school.
It was a blur, but we flew to Maui one time because Pearl Jam was playing at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. So I saw Pearl Jam with like 250 people.
What?
Because of that private
See, it all
aircraft.
works. See, there's
Yeah.
Good life experience.
Yeah, you put yourself out there, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But going back again, I was just again so filled with that patriotic spirit of coming together and protecting our country. And there were these opportunities to join up with this new agency called U.S. Customs and Border Protection and the new Department of Homeland Security. Kind of, what's that? So again, nothing about University of Hawaii. Great place to go to law school. Loved it. Had surf parties with my professors. The dean was, would wheel out all kinds of Hawaiian food every Friday, but it wasn't looking great on the resume. And so when I interviewed, I wasn't getting a choice spot. I wasn't getting Miami, right? Like I was like, send me to Miami. I want to take on the cartels. I was like, pick out a white suit,
Wearing white suits.
a white
Yeah.
suit,
Don
fluorescent
Johnson,
shirt,
here we go.
and that's kind of what I was hoping for. But they needed people on the southern border, so they sent me to El Paso.
There you go.
So I start out where the Border Patrol would say, where the legend of the Border Patrol began, El Paso, Texas, and that's where the Border Patrol Museum is. At the time, I thought, what did I just do? I was living in Washington, D.C. I had a girlfriend. Everything was nice. Big city, a lot of stuff to do. El Paso was like landing on the moon.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It was desolate. They say the only thing green there is the uniform. That's what the Border Patrol wears.
That's awesome.
There was no plant life, no water. I had always lived on a coast, right? And so I was pretty shocked at this choice that I had made, but it was the best decision because I got to see firsthand all these border issues. And I know we might talk a little bit about that, but I was there right on the border. I mean, you don't get any closer. El Paso is literally on the border. Ciudad Juarez, which is right across the border, and El Paso are almost one city. About 2 million people in Juarez, 1 million in El Paso. It's fully integrated together, right? There's almost no overlap, and then the Rio Grande River is just a creek there. Right? You walk right across it, so it's not really even any kind of boundary. And so seeing those challenges and seeing the community up close still lives with me today, right? And I think I take a lot away from that, but a lot of it was just a sense of real accomplishment and pride, frankly, working with Border Patrol agents, working with these law enforcement officers. Many of them immigrants, are coming from immigrant families who were working alone, frequently facing down cartel. We were worried about terrorists coming across at that point,
Sure.
right? And we prevented that. I feel very good about that. During my 16 years at Homeland Security, we did not let any of those folks in or any weapons of mass destruction or anything. So yeah, working down there, hand in hand with the law enforcement officers, learning about those border issues. That was where I thought my career was going to go.
Yeah.
And I stayed there for the 3 years that I had committed to. They said, you got to stay here for 3 years if you come down here. Okay, that's cool. Bought my first house, it was like very affordable. Got started with that nest egg, right? I'm big on people being able to afford their own homes. You can talk about that as a larger policy issue.
Sure.
And eventually they got me out to the West Coast, and I got back to San Diego, where my brother went to San Diego State.
Yep.
That I know, Ruben, that you went to San Diego State, the Harvard of the West is what my brother calls it. My wife also went there.
Very generous, but yes.
Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah. Who's calling it that? Well, people in Pacific Beach are calling it that.
Yeah.
So, so I got to hang out, in PB with my brother and do work in the San Diego office of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and met my wife.
Very
Quick story
good.
about that. Now we talked about my brother. They both were at San Diego State, both born in the same year. And the way I met my wife was because my brother was set up on a date with my now wife.
Yeah.
She wasn't my wife at the time, obviously. They were set up. It was one of those group dates. Group of guys, group of girls. And we met at Tivoli Tavern, which is the oldest bar in San Diego, right by the ballpark.
Yes.
And I'll never forget this. So we were providing cover for my brother and Haley, my wife. They were the ones who were supposed to be matched up. The rest of us were kind of just hanging around in the bar, making it a little bit less, I guess, weird.
Your wing people.
Yeah, we wing. Yeah, it was like a whole wing group.
Yeah.
And so, but I saw her as we were walking up, and my brother, by the way, is taller, richer, better looking.
I don't believe
I'm showing
it.
my vulnerability
believe
here.
it.
You
Yes.
better believe it.
Yes.
It's all true. So he was always doing well with the ladies. He was that guy. If you ever had any friends like that, and maybe you two were those guys, I don't know. But it was the guy would get hit on by the girls, right? Like we go someplace and girls would come up to my brother, right? Like
Right.
that never happened to me. It was always the other way
He's
around.
that magnet. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have to put much work in, huh? Okay.
So, and so I see Haley there as we're walking up to Tivoli Tavern. She's got one of those jean mini skirts, which I've always been a sucker for those.
Totally.
These legs that went on forever. And I was like, you dog, Pat, my brother. I'm like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Every time. And so what happened, though, was my brother bombed out. He was giving his best material over there, and she wasn't buying anything.
Too much. Yeah.
And I came in as the good older brother to rescue my brother. But I came in, with no pressure. I could be self-deprecating. I could be vulnerable. I could make fun of myself. I could be light, right? And that's what she was looking for, right?
Yep.
So in rescuing my brother, I found a wife, right? Like, and,
So your
That's a cool
brother,
story.
your brother's responsible for you and your wife
if he
being
wasn't,
together.
if he hadn't totally bombed out that
Does he
day-
tell you? Does he tell you? I did that on purpose, man. I could feel it wasn't going to be a match.
Is that
And-
overstepping your
Right.
boundaries?
No,
A
he's
wingman
never actually
too?
said that. No.
Okay, maybe he will now. Now that it's out in the
Yes.
universe.
So anyway,
Awesome.
So flash forward there. That was where I got a chance actually to prosecute cases too, right?
Yeah.
We were bringing in so many cases in San Diego. The Border Patrol agents I was working with, the Customs and Border Protection officers, those are the folks that work at a port, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Customs and Border Protection, two main law enforcement officers. The navy blue uniforms look like police officer uniforms. They work at a port of entry, airport, seaport, land border, port of entry.
Gotcha.
Between the port and that nowhere land, those are the Border Patrol agents. Now that's the difference for
green.
folks and they wear green.
Yep.
And they're kind of like cowboys and cowgirls, and they're riding their 4-wheel drives and ATVs and snowmobiles and
Wow.
horses, and just an amazing amount of respect for these folks, right? Tough job, a lot of people wouldn't want to do in those uncontrolled environments. But that's the difference between the two, right? They have the same law enforcement authority, but they work in different environments. But I was able to work with them, and what was happening though, we were bringing in so many cases, so many criminal cases. Drug smugglers. Before fentanyl, it was meth. Now it's fentanyl, and we can talk
Yep.
about that. How I work with San Clemente Border Patrol Station to interdict fentanyl these days.
Wow.
Because a lot of people forget about that
Yep.
drug interdiction mission that the Border Patrol has. But they needed people to prosecute the cases, so I was able to rotate over at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of California, as a prosecutor, still working in Homeland Security, but as a special assistant U.S. Attorney to prosecute border cases. So
Wow.
got to do that for a year or so. And I tell you what, there's nothing like going in front of a federal judge and just having them take you apart. Right? Oh, man. It's not like it is in the movies.
Yeah.
They were so hard on me. They were picking on the new kid. That toughens you up, though, right?
Yeah,
Putting
sure.
yourself to the fire.
Sure. Yep.
Taking yourself out of your comfort zone, having to talk on your feet and think quickly, that really is a growth opportunity.
Sure.
And so that was a defining moment as well, and something that stays with me and I bring to everything that I do. And so that brings me through the prosecutor days. I'll get right to the transition into the politics.
Yeah,
if
sure.
you want.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So things are going well, and I actually got promoted to be a supervisor. Went back up to the Bay Area where I had been before, living in Danville, another small, amazing little small town with a Western feel to it, and going into San Francisco every day and seeing the rampant homelessness there.
Yeah.
That was very troubling. We were in the historic Customs House building, which is right in downtown of the financial district, and it was just horrific to see that beautiful city in that state. I hope they make progress on that like we have in San Clemente, actually. But I was a leadership role. I was primed to move up into the agency. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to stay in the federal government because I love the feel of that warm blanket of the U.S. government,
Sure.
the comfort, the fact that I don't really have to challenge myself, that I can just kind of roll through this and get all these benefits. It's very alluring. Everything was going fine. I enjoyed that leadership position, again, primed to take over as chief counsel or general counsel in Homeland Security or something. That's what I thought my future was. To be quite honest, it was things that were happening at the national level that changed that for me. Because I had spent my whole career, 16 years, securing the border and looking out for people. And my goal there was that protection part of U.S. border protection, protecting our community, making people feel safe. I have this real theory that safety has to come first because you can't fulfill your ambitions if you don't feel safe. You can't be everything as a parent if you don't feel safe. You've got to feel safe first. So we need to protect people. To be honest, some of the policies in the prior administration, I guess you want to call it, I got hired under George Bush, then I was there for Obama, then I was there for Trump. Some of the policies, as a father and as somebody who prides myself on thinking about others, were against my basic values.
Gotcha.
And again, all for border security. I spent my whole career working with that. In fact, I got so high up, I was the one that trained the equivalent of the SWAT team at the Border Patrol. These are the folks who went in at Uvalde when the local police wouldn't act.
Wow.
These are the folks who they sent in when prisoners escape across the country. These are the people who protect people during the Super Bowl, and they protect the president when they travel. It's called the BORTAC unit, Tactical Unit for the Border Patrol. The idea, though, that we would, I'll focus right in it. The idea that we would take a child from their parents, a child from a foreign country that didn't make the decision to come, and that we would separate them from their parents and put them in the equivalent of a cage where it was even harsh for an adult drug smuggler to be detained, wasn't something that I could look at myself in the mirror and frankly be part of. That was really, really hard.
Oh, the traumatic experience that they must go through. Yeah. Right.
Because when I was a kid, I felt lonely a lot. In fact, I had a whole thing called the lonely feeling. And it was like when I went to Boy Scout camp and I didn't feel like I fit in, I had the lonely feeling. And when, my parents were gone for a little bit and I spent the night at a friend's house, I had the lonely feeling. So I know what it's like to be lonely. And I know what it's like to feel rejected or scared.
Yeah.
And the idea that we would purposely do this and that we would actually force Border Patrol agents, many of them parents, to be part of this, that was really tough for me. Because we can secure the border without betraying our basic values. And our basic values are taking care of people. And our basic values should be taking care of the most vulnerable as a core part of it. And those kids are the most vulnerable, right? And so I had a real sort of moment of personal decision making
Sure.
and turmoil. And I one day I was taking Bart home. That's the
Good old Bart.
underground.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
smells like a.
That's an experience
my
in
buddy
itself.
would say, smells like a bum's toilet on there. It smells like urine. It's crowded, but Bart. I feel bad for Bart. It's not a pleasant way to travel, but that's the best way to get across that
Yep.
bay into the city. And I got really emotional. Actually, I just started tearing up thinking about if my kids, were taken away from Haley and I and into that and put into confinement. And I said, I got to make a choice here and break from this. And so, with the urging of my wife, who's been my biggest supporter, my rock, my harbor rock,
I love it.
my my mentor, my guide in a lot of ways. She really supported me. This was leaving that government job would put the family in some amount of financial risk.
Sure.
But she said, I see bigger things for you, Chris. I know you can do things that will make a real positive impact for our community, and you're not going to be able to do that as a member of the bureaucracy. And I had seen myself that elected officials in the government are the ones who get to make the shot. Not as positively as I felt about my job as an agency attorney and as a prosecutor and all of the law enforcement officers I worked with, we were part of the civil service. We didn't get to make the decisions. We were
Right.
implementing someone else's
Right.
decision, or I was giving legal advice, and then they could take it or leave it. I wanted to be a decision maker. I wanted to be at that boardroom table making the call and representing my community and improving people's lives. So all that together allowed me the strength to give up that very comfortable, lucrative government career, all of my retirement, all of my health benefits, and strike out for a new life. And that new life was going to be right here in San Clemente. Now, my wife made that decision up. For all the guys out there, let your wife make the decision about where you're going to live in the home. I mean, again, like learning lesson there. And the story behind that was we were living in Carlsbad. Right? I know you're there, and you guys are both from this area here in South Orange County, where I had spent a lot of time actually in San Juan. My buddy, like we had talked about, his dad was an Oakland Raider, so he had the beach house at Capistrano Shores, and we'd come down here every summer. So I knew the area. But when we were in Carlsbad and we wanted to do a date night, we wanted to get out of Carlsbad and not see anybody and get a different feel, we would come to Avenida Del Mar. We'd trek up here. We'd get a babysitter, and we would go to Nick's mostly. Loved that feel of that place, right? Because you go down Del Mar and you're walking back into the past.
Oh, sure.
Into a time where there was a lot more authenticity. And again, nothing against Carlsbad, but it has more generic feel in a lot of places. I mean, there's not a lot of places in California that are 100 years old like San Clemente. So you get this feeling when you go down this main street in San Clemente and you're looking down towards the water and you're heading down towards the pier, that you're in this really, really special, authentic place, and you are. So we would come all the way up here, meet some friends we had in town. And so when we left up there and I left the government, and for the first time in 20 years, I guess we could live where we wanted to live, right? They moved me around. That was part of the job. We settled in San Clemente, and this is where we're going to raise our kids. And best decision we ever made for our family.
Yeah, I still get those feelings when when you're heading down, you make the right on Del Mar heading down, and I still get those feelings as if I was a kid, driving down and remembering the old Cornet store on the corner down there, and it's very similar. Obviously, it looks different. There's different stores and restaurants, and I think the downtown area has vastly improved over the last decade. But it still has, you were able to maintain that same original feel.
That's the goal. Keep San Clemente, San Clemente.
Yeah.
That's our mandate on city council.
Ruben and I worked together for 8 years at our previous firm, just about 8 years together. And we'd often have either a client lunch or, hey, let's get away from the screen for a minute and get out and get a taco or, something. And we always made sure we had time to get down and make that drive. I'm all, when's our next meeting? He's all, 2:30 or something. I'm all, quick. We called it a circuit.
We call it circuit.
We're gonna run. We're gonna run the circuit.
Run the circuit.
So
Love it.
the circuit was head down Del Mar, all the way through. Go real slow once you get down by the
Yes,
pier.
at the pier bowl. Yeah.
Windows down. Doesn't matter what time of year. Get that salt air for a minute.
Attitude adjustment, and then head back to work.
and sit there and go, dude, we live here, man. Like this is our
So
joint.
lucky.
We're so lucky to be able to do this. Escape for a minute, and we'd come back up and go around the bowl and cut back through Del Mar, come right back up, where the library is, and go real slow. And we'd see, hey, there's Tom, there's John. Hey, I wonder what they're doing in there.
Yes.
What a great feeling.
Yeah,
And we still have that, right?
Yeah.
And we've got to keep that. Hey, look, it's easy to forget this wonderful, wonderful place we live in. So you have to remind yourself by doing that. Yeah, my wife and I do that by taking that beach walk, the beach trail walk,
Oh, yeah.
which we
Sure.
have that is unheard of to have an unpaved beach trail, and it's generations before us that did that. And I know we can talk a little bit about that too, because it's heartbreaking to have it be interrupted. It is right now because of these landslides, but that is something we do to reset. Is just leave your worries behind, feel the ocean air, hear the waves crashing, watch the best surfers in the world out there surfing, and take a moment to let that wash all over you.
Very
realize that you're in this impediment way, and then head back to your other life,
And then plug it in.
But we get to do that, and we shouldn't forget how fortunate we are to have that.
Well, we often talk about that a lot. The greatest commodity on the planet is not money, it's not power, it's time.
Yes.
And that you can't create more time. It's impossible. And we have people working on that actually.
Exactly. Sure, yeah.
We'll let you know. You'll be the first to know.
I'd love to invest in that.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Great opportunity.
But sometimes it feels like, some days are longer than others in a good way, right? And it seems like when you can do that and have a little, humility and I don't know, just slow it down a little bit, you're essentially creating those moments. So very lucky to have that.
Best investment for yourself you can do is
Sure.
to take the time to appreciate what you have and be present.
Yeah.
So State of the Union last night, right? So in the spirit of the State of the Union, how about we do a little State of the Union of San Clemente?
Yeah.
Obviously, people have probably recognized you in the news lately. I know you've been getting interviewed a lot, and we've had a lot of things going on in San Clemente. And let's hit a couple of these topics, and feel free to bring up whatever else that we don't know that's going on. Yeah, you know better than we do. But let's talk about the landslides real quick.
Yeah.
We have clients that have been affected by this.
Yep.
And you don't have to be too observant to just be driving around, and on some of our bluffs here, things don't look great.
Yeah.
What's going on with the landslides, and if you can give us just a brief update on that, of what's going on in town and what we're doing to maybe address it.
Yeah. I mean, not to get super technical, and I'm not a geologist or a scientist, but I think reviewing the past is a good sort of prelude to this. We are in a big ancient landslide, right? That is what this area is. So it's naturally unstable, and it's the geology of it is it's sort of a clay sand mixture, which isn't particularly stable.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because it was, an ancient landslide. So we have that, and we've had histories of landslides over San Clemente's entire history, and Dana Point and San Juan.
I remember the one right around the corner here.
Yeah. So that's not necessarily new, but for coming much closer to where we are now, for the last decade until the last few years, it's been a drought. Everything's been very dry.
Sure. Yep.
And so you're not going to see as much movement because things are just sort of dried up, right? Like there's not a lot of moisture. There's not a lot of, reason for the land to be moving. It's the moisture that really causes the landslide, right? And so in San Clemente, one of the most amazing things about San Clemente too, by the way, and not to, again, compare it to Carlsbad, which is a spectacularly beautiful place too, but San Clemente's entire city is essentially on a slope going right down to the beach. So like, except if you live in Talega like me, you have a view, right? You look over a lower area of the city, and so it's amazing that everybody has a view in San Clemente, right? But that means that all of our rainwater, all of our creek water, everything is flowing right down the hill and right into the bluffs. The bluffs are filled with water already, naturally. Then you add a lot of rainwater like we got for the last 2 years. That weight, that added sort of just mass is too much for the bluff to bear. And that's when we see these slides that we've had, right? That's the quick answer.
Yeah.
Now here's the longer answer to it, right? Because we can do things about that. And, the city's going to tell people don't water your plants if you're on the bluff. And we can find ways to try to divert the water so it's not going into the bluffs. But there's another part of that, and it links up to another big problem that the city's having, which is the lack of sand.
Right.
People don't realize, too, if you look at the landslide that happened at Cypress Shores, the one that happened at Casa Romanica, and the one that happened at Mariposa Point, what we see there is, in each case, there's been significant erosion with the sand at that location as well. And in each case, the bluff failure happens from the bottom up. People aren't seeing what's really going on. Yeah. It's that footing. Below the bluff, below the train tracks, is a clay layer. If we have sand, the ocean water is not getting to that clay layer and it's staying firm. If you've ever done pottery, you know what happens with clay when it gets wet. It gets malleable, it gets slick, it gets smooth. It's getting wet now because we don't have sand. That footing weakness is also a reason why those bluffs are giving way. They're sliding out from the bottom up. And so, long story short, there is the very best thing we could do for our bluffs is the same thing we could do for our beaches, which is replenish the sand and retain more sand. And this is something that people in the United States have been doing for 100 years, going back to Coney Island. People figured out beaches are the biggest tourist attraction of anything in the United States. And so let's make sure we build and protect our beaches. And that's been done at Waikiki, going back to Hawaii, and on the East Coast, and more on the East Coast than the West Coast. Because they've had hurricanes and things, and they've learned to build back their beaches. We haven't had hurricanes. So we've had what I like to call a slow-moving hurricane over, say, the last 50 years. The end result is the same. Sand is lost. Chipping away at it. It just doesn't happen in one fell swoop. But the same end result is there. So the reason I mention that is I think what I'd like to see, and what the city is really leading on and working with our congressmen on, and any partner we can find on, is the funding to build back all of our beaches, right? All the way from Pochi to State Beach and into Cypress Shores and down into Lowers, right? So that we can keep the World Surf League finals here. We'd have to have a concerted effort to build back our sand. That's the very, very, very best thing we could do. And everything will benefit from that. And then, of course, retaining the sand. And then in certain areas, building stability structures on our bluffs.
Right. I mean, do we have a time frame, that is an initial?
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And I jest about that, but this has been something that's ignored, frankly. And it's been fairly easy to ignore, too, because it's slow moving. And there's a lot of other needs out there.
Sure.
But what we need is a concerted effort, like they do on the East Coast, like they do in Myrtle Beach and in Florida. And when there's a disaster, there's a regional organization that springs into motion.
Sure.
We don't have that. We don't have any concerted effort. It's city by city. That's not a way to solve this problem. That's a Band-Aid approach.
Yeah.
We need a all hands on deck, focused approach. Let's bring in the money. Let's bring in the expertise. Let's do this as a regional issue, because we are in the hotbed. Our littoral cell, which is, it's basically just a section of the coastline where sand moves back and forth, runs from Dana Point to La Jolla. And this is the hot spot, right? We see that with the train line, because right on the beach being affected, but beyond that, we are losing more sand than everywhere else. And so it's just highlighted because of these larger disruptions. So we should be the focus, right? This is where we should have a state regional agency, in my mind, that should be coming in here and proactively sanding our beaches and creating, nature-based ways of preventing that shoreline erosion.
Gotcha.
And creating a couple extra surf breaks in there. I'm telling you, this is part of the program. Not disrupting any that we already have, right? For those at T Street, right? We don't want to make sure.
That's Miles.
Is Pochi all of a sudden giving me an awesome break? Is that what you're saying?
Possibility, right? I mean, that's what I talk about with my friends at Capistrano Shores, actually, right? They've got no beach, and
right.
So I think we can add some additional benefits there. And this is a project that you're talking about tens of millions of dollars. Sounds like a lot. That's nothing compared to the benefits,
Totally.
the adverse effect on our local businesses if the beaches
Sure.
went away, obviously the quality of life loss. So I'm very practical about that. That's one thing. You're in the government, you work with law enforcement officers, you do operation plans. You got to leave politics beside, you got to leave personal sentiment beside. It's just about taking that hill. It's about accomplishing the mission. It's about getting everybody home safe.
Love it.
That's the attitude we need to have here.
Yeah.
Let's set everything else aside. Let's come together and let's make it happen for the community. And so that I think we can do and should do, and there is no time to waste. Every day we don't do that, we don't have a concerted program to accomplish this, is another day of potentially lost beach for San Clemente.
I'm happy to hear that's becoming a priority.
Yeah.
You know, I went to San Diego State and I grew up here, but I spent a lot of time in San Diego County until I started working back here about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And first thing I noticed being here on a regular basis was, wait a minute, what? It's
Right.
completely
Looks different.
different.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see that if you haven't been in a place. You see
Right.
it less if you're there every day than if you come in after being away.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can do this, right? Like we're gonna do this. If I have anything to say about it, and it needs to happen because you can't be a beach town without the beach.
Right.
So that is priority one.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
frankly, like so many things in the government, and I want to try and change this. We react. We're reactionary. We wait for disaster to happen. We wait for the fire to start and the building to be engulfed, and then we go, let's send some fire trucks. Why aren't we taking action to prevent the fire from starting in the first place?
Yeah.
We got to change our mindset on that.
Well, that kind of ties into our overall mantra as far as why we at our old firm we had over 300 households at one point, and we had no choice but to be reactive, right?
Yes,
We
we're
were as
overwhelmed,
busy
yes.
as our clients made us.
Yeah.
Making this move
More
within
reactive.
Harbor Rock,
Yeah.
we absolutely are proactive
And
in front-
strategic. Yes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Get that chance. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for the update there. I know that's something. Your short answer next time on the news should be, "Why is this all going on?" Science. Next question.
Yeah.
You know, it's
exactly.
like-
Yes,
Totally.
so I've
Oh,
heard.
did you take Earth Science in high school? I did.
Right.
So
No,
Yeah,
in Hawaii.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn
Yeah,
last night. so
exactly. I
can-
love
can
to say
speak-
that one.
I can speak about all this. Yes.
Yeah. Why are you a doctor? No, I
Yeah.
stayed at a Holiday Inn last night though. So as we're cruising on time, good things go fast.
Yeah.
We still have a little bit of time here to discuss
Okay.
things today. The homeless element in San Clemente seems to be diminishing. Seems to be going the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that works, plays, lives here can see that.
Yeah.
A few years back, there were some other elements that were out of our control that I'm sure were contributing to an influx in folks that were down by North Beach, displaced individuals, whatever. Not as important as why they were there or what, but there was an issue. It was an issue, and it was hard to police. It was hard to outreach. I mean, it was hard, both good and bad. And I know that's been commented by our clients, friends, that they're seeing less and less of folks experiencing homelessness in San Clemente.
Right.
What's going on there?
Yeah.
Is that? I'm sure that's been a hot topic over the last few years, at least.
You talk to people, and I talk to a lot of people. And it almost is always one of the top 2 or 3 issues. Right, is homelessness. And we're a beach town. It's an attractive place for homeless people to be.
Absolutely.
Right.
If I had an option, this would be
Yeah.
one place.
So it's no wonder the
No-brainer.
folks are here.
Yeah.
Some of them are many of them are from the community, right? Originally, but we get a lot of people here, and it's a nice place to be, right? Look, our numbers in 2019 was around 120 people, and that's a lot for a small mid-sized town like us. And they're very noticeable too, right? Because they're in North Beach, they're in downtown, and it's a public safety thing. It's a public safety thing, not just for our residents and other folks in the community, but actually for the homeless people too,
Yeah.
right? They're living in very unsafe environment, and it's not healthy.
They're exposed. Yeah.
Yes, so it is a public safety issue. When I came into city council and we started looking at this, and we had just come off of, before I was on there was this homeless encampment right by the water treatment
Yep.
plant.
Yep.
by North Beach, and that was a total disaster, frankly. But we have this Martin versus Boise case out there. If you've heard about that, right? It's a Ninth Circuit case that's actually gone up to the Supreme Court now that says basically you can't enforce your anti-camping ordinance if you're a city, meaning you can't prevent people from sleeping in public areas unless you provide beds for them. So we're kind of constrained by that. And this is a complex issue, right?
Sure.
But a lot of people were yelling at us and saying, we got to have a shelter, emergency shelter.
Right.
That's what you have to do, right? And that's what a lot of cities were doing to comply with this law, frankly. And, a lot of my own supporters were saying that. Then there were folks who were saying, well, you got to put people up in hotels too, right? You got to put them up in a hotel,
right.
get them out of the elements. Going back to that pragmatic spirit, I got to tell you, those aren't the answer. And it's hard to push back against your own supporters, right? People that you trust and you like, and you want them to like you, and to tell them that's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
That's kicking the can down the road. That's punting the football to a later part of the game. That doesn't address any of the underlying issues of why these people are homeless. They're going to come out of that potentially worse off, or at least in the same position, and you're going to spend a lot of dang taxpayer money to do it.
Right.
It's window dressing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing as some places, frankly, they bus the homeless folks to another city. Not to name names. I won't name names. Okay, it's Coronado. Well, okay, that's great. Now we don't have homeless people. Well, guess what? They get on the bus in the morning and come right back.
Totally.
So that's not the answer. What we did, and I'm really proud of us for doing this, we got some of this COVID money, right? And we could have spent it on a lot of things. What we decided to do is hire a dedicated homeless team. Before that, we had a contractor who was our homeless outreach team. These folks would fly in from Santa Ana. They'd switch people. So one day it would be somebody who knew San Clemente, next day somebody who'd never been in San Clemente. They didn't develop relationships with these people that are out on the streets. They didn't understand their issues. They were just there to run through the motions, and it cost us a lot of money. We ended that contract, and we decided to use the extra money to hire our own homeless outreach coordinator. That's Carly Hunter. She is a badass.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the key to this whole damn thing. The idea there is we want someone who is going to be fully integrated in the community, who's going to understand the individuals that are homeless in our city, that understands our city, that knows where to look. And she's going to work to connect these homeless folks with the services they need that help them overcome the challenges. Yeah. Get back into housing, get back into being self-sufficient, address their addiction issues, address their mental health issues, address their job issues, and focus using that personal connection. And and to leverage those resources out there, that supportive housing, that job training, whatever it is.
I think that's smart. How are you? I mean, I'm trying to put myself in a homeless person's shoes. If, let's say, once a week I'm being approached by someone that's coming to help, supposedly, but it's a different person every time. They don't know my name.
Yes.
Maybe that person you feel like they have their own agenda. If there's no relationship there, I don't see that being a very successful program.
And that's what happened.
Right.
So these are folks who are naturally very wary of people, right? They're living on the streets in very scary conditions. And so Carly, it's hard. She spends a lot of time developing these relationships, and there's no immediate result, right? They're still out on the street. The long-term payoff is there. There's not a lot of Carlys out there. She has the temperament, the skill set to bond with these folks who most people just want to walk by and pretend aren't there.
Yeah, right.
And so she's willing to go right into the trenches and talk to them and befriend them and gain their trust. And that made all the difference. And then it was so successful, we brought in Troy. Troy himself was a homeless person, serviced by FAM in San Clemente, and worked there at FAM then, and then we brought him in. So they are the incredible duo who's responsible for our latest numbers going from 115, 120 to 15 in our latest point in time.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
And a big part of that, and if I could sort of narrow down on one thing, there are certain members of the homeless community who leverage being homeless, right? They use it to exploit a a drug trafficking business or a theft business. They're out there and they bring and attract others to the community.
I got you.
When we found a way to get those folks into housing, that made the whole issue go away, because that took all these other folks who were buying drugs from them and just cavorting with them go to some other place. Wow. Because now these folks are in, supportive housing in Aliso Viejo or somewhere else, and so they're not here. And as soon as we did that in North Beach, that whole crew that was terrorizing that community, was taking over the playground area.
Yeah.
And damn it, I won't accept that, right? Like, I got kids. We should be able to have kids going to swing sets and kids, hanging out at a picnic table.
You can use a beach bathroom.
Right, without worrying about needles there.
100%.
Or a scary person in the bathroom.
100%.
Or there was, and I'm blanking on the name, that drug for when you have an overdose.
Narcan.
Narcan.
Yeah.
When we found the Narcan, empty Narcan at the picnic bench, that was a real eye opener for us. And our brand new city manager, who's also largely responsible for this, Andy Hall, having the right leader in place, who's bold, who's willing to listen to the community, like Andy, is something you need, right? So that was like, we're done with this. We are going to take action. And so, we didn't do what the homeless advocates wanted us to do and build the shelter. We didn't do what the anti-homeless advocates wanted us to do and arrest everybody.
Yep.
We found our own way, and it's been fabulously successful. And I think it is a model for other cities. And when you look at LA, which is overrun, and where they've thrown millions and maybe billions, I don't know, into just a pure housing solution. Let's just build housing and throw homeless people in.
It's an expensive Band-Aid, yeah.
And let's build more sober living homes and and license more sober living homes and put homeless people and put drug addicts into our communities. That's just window dressing.
Right.
That just makes them not be on the street for a little bit of while. With all of these corollary downside adverse effects, all of this wasted money, that stuff drives me crazy. Yeah. I'm very pragmatic about that. I'm not political about it, right? Like, I'm saying things that probably wouldn't be aligned with a lot of the people that I politically align with. I don't care. I'm talking about, where can we get practical results? Where can we deliver for the community in a way that judiciously spends the taxpayer money and not just score political points or do things that our loudest supporters want us to do?
Yep.
Let's make a difference.
I love it. Man, good stuff.
Are we sure we have to finish the show? Because I think this was well, I mean, let's be honest.
We'll save it for session 2.
This is the type of show,
the acoustic version.
Yeah, I
there
mean,
you go.
We had an idea of what we wanted to talk about today, and I mean, when you start unpacking these things, like a whole show could be on that topic of homelessness, or what the geologists, like all these things about our town. I know we were going to cover a couple other topics, but just maybe a 60-second on your thoughts of why San Clemente is so special, and what makes us a great community.
We should have another show on
it's kind of teasing what we might go into.
Preserving San Clemente, but also adopting what else is out there, what's on the horizon.
Yeah, and more importantly, are you gonna stick around for a while? I mean, you're the kind of leader that we need in this town.
I'll be here. Yeah, those we're raising our kids, our 3 kids, and we're gonna be planted in San Clemente forever, I think. Yeah. I've never found a better place, and I lived in a lot of nice places, in a lot of different places.
Yeah, you did.
I think I got the context to say with a great deal of confidence, this is the greatest place I've ever lived. Look, awesome. The short answer is it's the people. Right? The people of San Clemente make this place what it is. The traditions, the families, the leaders over the course of our nearly 100-year history who have committed themselves to keeping this town as pure and authentic as it is. That takes work. It doesn't just happen. Nothing against my friends at Dana Point, but they just created a generic-looking Manhattan Beach-looking beach city over there. And there's a lot of benefits and cool stuff about some of that new buildings, but that's not what Dana Point is. Dana Point should be a surf town. This town's always going to be a surf town. It's always going to be historical if I have anything to do with it, right? And if those other leaders before me have anything to do with it, it's that commitment to keeping San Clemente what it is. You can't lose that. You lose that, you're done. Yeah. You build a big apartment building down in the middle of Del Mar, you're done. Mm-hmm. If you turn the Pier Bowl into a big hotel, you're probably done. There's some benefits to those things, but you can't lose your identity in the pursuit of
Right.
of monetary success or prestige or anything. We can, I'm going beyond 60 seconds.
It's okay.
We can and should progress with the times, take advantage of these amazing benefits. That means we do need a world-class hotel here so that when the World Surf League comes, we can host the world on our doorstep for the championship, where a lot of our own surfers are in there. Pickleball, same thing, right? Like, we have these amazing opportunities. We have businesses here who are at the forefront of technology and other things because they love the idea that their employees can live in this incredible place. We have to leverage that and take advantage of that and think very creatively. But we can't lose our spirit. We can't lose our identity and who we are.
Right.
So it's that balance that you have to strike, and that's what I think we should have an eye towards. And so I take with me those lessons, the commitment, all of the hard work from those generations before us, and I make the pledge, to San Clemente and to them that I will do everything I can to maintain that and have us be the world-class classic beach town and surf town that we are. But at the same time, do the things that allow us the resources, basically, to take care of ourselves into the future. And I'm very optimistic about that. That's one message I would like to say. Our best days are before us. We're a kick-ass town, and our best days are still yet before us, taking a page out of the State of the Union, right? I'm optimistic and bullish about this and ready to fight for our community. And I know so many others are too, right? So we are on the rise here. We have great things around the corner to look forward to, and I just can't wait to get to work doing that.
Well, I'm all jacked up now. I want to run through this fake brick wall right here. Well, in all seriousness,
don't do that.
Yeah, I won't. In all seriousness, no, you chose, just like you chose San Clemente. You got to remember, San Clemente chose you. So you got to remember that.
That's true.
And we appreciate you being.
It's a great honor.
Blazing the path of leadership in this town. We're lucky to have people like you in this town, and I'm sure there's some like-minded folks around you, and it's a breath of fresh air in local government.
100%.
I know you have higher aspirations in your political career, and we're all rooting for you, but we want you to stick around for a little while if you can.
Hey, I'll be here.
Cool.
Local government's where it's at, right? We're out in the community. We're out seeing things on the ground level, meeting with the constituents. That's the beauty of local government.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time for us. I feel like
thanks, man.
we're old friends now.
I know.
I think we align on a lot, and I know you're a very busy man, and we appreciate you taking some time to spend with us today.
Heck yeah. Anytime. Next time, golf.
Yes.
And we're going to have to
lots to talk about. Maybe at least a couple times a year. We'd love to have you back for sure.
Awesome. I'll be here.
And to our viewers, if you're living your life and you have your health, you're the wealthiest people in the world. Thanks for joining us in our digital barbershop.